So the question is, in one of my previous talks, I mentioned that I had taken LSD when I was younger, and that the LSD had given me an experience that I felt offered me a glimpse into another possible way of experiencing my existence, a glimpse into another possible way of living in which there wasn't any stress, in which there wasn't any questions. Everything seemed to be obvious. And everything seemed to be interesting, and everything seemed to be exciting. And it didn't occur to me that there was any problems. That's the glimpse that I had. And during the time when I was experiencing this psychedelic experience, there was no attention on me. I wasn't thinking about me. I wasn't thinking about how I felt. I wasn't thinking about what I thought about anything. I was really completely in love with life. I was completely available and in love with everything that was happening, without any concern. And so the way that occurred for me was that me, the person, had an altered experience. And that's how it left me. Me, the person, had this altered experience that occurred because I took this drug that changed my brain chemistry and somehow allowed me to have this altered experience. And then the way things occurred to me was that I wanted to get that back. I wanted to have that again, and not only did I want to have it again, but I wanted to see if there was a possibility that I could stay in that experience instead of keep coming back. And some of the early people that were experimenting with LSD, like Richard Alberts and Timothy Leary, they concluded the same thing that I did. You know, they were psychologists, and so the way it occurred to them when they took LSD was that their personality got altered, and their personality changed into this different experience. And then maybe there's a way that can happen and stay that way. And one of the things Ramdas did, his father was wealthy and he had a mansion in New York. He went there with a bunch of his friends and they took LSD every day. And took massive doses of LSD every day, right? And what they discovered was they couldn't stay there. Not only could they not stay there, in other words, the LSD kept wearing off and they would come back to the ordinary state, right? But not only did they discover that, but they discovered that if you took it constantly, the effect started to reduce. Your body started to become accustomed to the experience, and so you didn't get as high as you did before, and you didn't stay there as long. That wasn't the news they wanted, right? And so after that, Richard Alberts decided to go to India because his understanding was that some of these gurus in India were experiencing being in this state all the time. And so he wanted to find out if they could do that, he wanted to find out how they did that so he could do that because the LSD didn't work. So he went to India, got a guide. The guide took him to a person who was supposed to be, everybody knew this person was a guru. He had done things that were outside of the ordinary. So he was demonstrating in a lot of different ways that he was in this different state of consciousness. And when Richard Alberts met him, he was lying on the ground, and the person that brought him to meet him went over and bowed down at his feet. And Richard Alberts just stood there, and the way he described it, he said, "I'm a psychologist. I'm not going to kiss anybody's feet. You know, I don't know this guy. Why would I think he's any better than I am, right?" So then he started to talk to the guru, and the guru said, "Last night, when you were on your way here, you looked up in the night stars and you were thinking about your mother who was sick, and she has this particular illness." And when he heard that, he went over and bowed. So he realized this person was experiencing things outside of time and space, that he could see things beyond his own personal experience. And so Ram Dass became a student of this teacher and spent time with him. Ram Dass was given that name by this guru. That it's typical in India that when you become the student of a guru, the guru gives you a spiritual name, right? So that's how Richard Alpert's got the name Ram Dass. On the other hand, Timothy Leary didn't do that. He just decided to keep taking LSD and was saying everybody should take LSD. I think the same famous saying was, turn on and drop out, right? Of course, the government started chasing him, right? So, but that's the way it was for me. I had that same kind of experience, and then it became evident to me that I wasn't able to get it back and keep it, right? And this went on for many, many years, and I tried different kinds of psychedelics, but none of it worked in terms of making any permanent changes. And so this was an unsettling thing for me, because I had these experiences first through psychedelics and then through going to intensive retreats where you would practice meditation for an hour at a time, 10 times a day for 10 days with no talking, right? And that ended me up, without taking any drugs, that ended me up being clearly in a different state of consciousness, experiencing a different state of consciousness. But that didn't last either. Right? So it seemed to me that was the way it was going to go, that I didn't really see any possibility of staying in this state consistently. And then something happened. Something happened that I didn't see coming. And what that was that somehow, through studying and listening to teachers, it started to become evident to me that the reason I couldn't, now watch, that the reason I couldn't stay in that state, right, was because I never left it. And that didn't make any sense to me. How could I have never left it when I'm experiencing this other state of my personality, my ordinary crazy way of existing? But then the way that I realized it was that I realized that the personality that I thought I was, that changed and became in this altered state, right? The personality that I thought I was, that I was leaving and becoming different or changing into this other state, right, was never what I was. That was the mistake. It was never what I was. So if you think that you are the personality and through practicing meditation you're going to change into being the awareness, right? That's not going to work, because if you think you are the personality and you're going to change into be the awareness through meditation, guess what? You're going to end up going back to being the personality again and again and again. Right? Because you still believe that you are a personality that's changing into the awareness. The truth is, you were never a personality and you never changed into the awareness. You were always the awareness that became a personality. Or thought you became a personality, because you can't actually become a personality because there's no such thing. You can't. See, this is the thing you have to get through these teachings and practices, is that you have it, you take yourself to be a physical body and a personality, right? And for you, that's real, right? And for you, that's the way it really is, that's the truth. How do you know it? Everybody's experiencing that. It's collectively true, right? How can the whole world be experiencing that and not be true? How could the whole flock be flying in the wrong direction? Well, they are. They are. Right? Because one of the qualities of a personality is they don't have the patience to do anything long enough to see if it really works. So most people can never stay with meditation long enough until it starts to be an experience they're having, and then it's obvious to them that it works. Yeah? And the other reason that people don't stay with meditation or even attempt to practice meditation is because they have put their eggs in the basket of the collective reality. In other words, they've made such a commitment to being a physical body, made such a commitment to being a personality that's separate from everyone else, right? And invested so much time and energy in living life that way, right? Doing all the work that you had to do to make the money to get what you wanted, you know, and all that. You invested yourself in this whole collective reality that everybody's involved in, and then you're presented with the idea that none of that's really real, right? So that's going to land for the personality not as a good thing, you know. It's going to land for the personality. What do you mean? I wasted all my energy and my time making the money and trying to be secure and doing all the things that people do to try and be happy. I admit it didn't work. I admit that it didn't work, because after all the money that I made and all the things that I bought and the cars and the houses and all that, right, I'm still not satisfied. I'm still not happy. I'm still afraid of death, you know. I'm still in conflict with other people. I'm still in conflict with myself, right? So it's an unworkable reality. And one of the first things that has to happen for people to be able to make the commitment necessary to realize this possibility is you have to be thoroughly done with living your life as a personality and a physical body, because it doesn't work and it's never going to work. So you have to be thoroughly done with that. You have to be clear that that's not going to work, and you have to start to put your eggs in a different basket. You have to start to pay attention to another possibility and start to give that your attention and your time and your energy, just like you did to become a personality. You know, when you were a baby and when you were an infant, you were a full-time student of becoming a person, weren't you? Full-time student of becoming a person. All day long you were modeling being a person. Then you went to school and learned how to become part of the collective group of persons, right? So you were spending your full time doing that. In order to get out of that state, out of that condition, and experience the possibility that does exist for you to be happy and free and content and at peace, you have to put the same kind of energy in again to do two things: decondition the conditioning and recondition yourself and your brain to a different condition, not something that is actually a condition, but actual truth. Because when you practice meditation and you move your attention from the thought process over to being aware of the body breathing, you're moving out of a process that generates an illusion that you are a body and a personality. You're moving out of that process and out of that activity to becoming aware of the body breathing. And when you do that, what you were being that was unreal, as soon as you move your attention away from the thought activity, what you were being that was unreal starts to become something that is real. Because you never were a personality. You can't be a personality, because a personality does not exist. There is no personality in the physical body. There's no personality that's alive. There's no personality that's awake. The only existence of a personality exists in a thought process. If I ask you who you are, the only answer you can possibly give me is who you think you are. It's the only answer you can possibly give me. You have nowhere else to go for an answer, right? And the reason that's the case is because you're conditioned to believe and act as if you are a personality in a physical body, and that's what you do. It's a pretense. Everybody's doing that all over the world, right? And look at the news tonight to see how that's working out, you know? Or look at your own family to see how that's working out. Or look in the mirror to see how that's working out, right? And if you are sufficiently convinced that that's never going to work, right, then you have the motivation to start to pay attention to the truth. You know, to start, because attention is energy. If you give attention to a thought process that's not going anywhere, you're feeding it fuel by giving it attention. And that will make it continue to generate these patterns of thinking and feeling that you consider to be the experience of being a personality. Brain scientists are telling us now that the evidence is in. People who practice meditation consistently over time have a different brain, and that brain works differently than the average brain. Why? Because the garbage that was in, like garbage in, garbage out, for those of us who are old, you know, information technology people, garbage in, garbage out, right? So the garbage went into the brain, and so the brain takes that to be true. The brain doesn't have its own consciousness. It can only take the information you put in there and use it, right? So that got put in there. The brain uses that to have you behave, right? By producing thoughts and emotions that end up being behavior, right? Right? This is a dysfunctional reality. It causes mental illness, right? Neurosis is the light form of the mental illness, right? If you get carried away with it, that neurosis will turn into worse things, like panic attacks and anxiety attacks and depressions and suicides and all the rest of it, right? So that's the unworkability of that system. But when you start to move your attention to start to learn about the truth in terms of the concepts of the truth, and then practice meditation so that it's possible for you to have a direct experience of the reality of the truth, or direct experience of your true nature, a direct experience of that which is actually alive and conscious, now you have a real place to exist from. And from that real place you can see things from a real place, and you can see things as they actually are. So from that real place you can begin to see the fact that the thought process that you give your attention to is keeping you limited, it's keeping you in a state of suffering, it's keeping you in a state of fear, it's keeping you in a state of conflict, and it will never change. It's cyclical. That's why they do this when I talk about crazy. It just cycles around in a circle and a circle and a circle. So when I finally realized that who I thought I was never who I thought I was, and who I really always have been was the experience I was having in the altered state, right? Then I made a new level of commitment to practicing meditation, because it became evident to me that if I practiced meditation, gradually I would be able to come into a consistent experience of being free, happy, content, satisfied, and at peace. A consistent experience. Right? And because I saw that, and because I practiced that, that did happen. And now I am experiencing the reality of what I am. It is totally consistent, right? It never changes, right? It's always, it's able to be with whatever is happening without being upset about it. Able to be with whatever's happening, able to be with anybody and be receptive and open, able to experience my true nature, which is unconditional love. How could it be otherwise? Because when you realize who you really are, you realize you are in a relationship with everything else that is, in such a way that you experience it to be you. When you experience your true nature as awareness itself, and you understand that every other human being has that same identity, every other human being is experiencing that same thing. They may not know it, right? Because as I have talked about in one of the previous classes, they may not know it because their personality is in front of it. They're identified with something that's in front of the truth, and they don't know that there's anything but what they're identified with, right? And they keep trying to make that work. That's what I meant when I said to you in the last class, If you want to know why is it that I'm meditating and I'm learning these things and I understand these concepts, then why is it that I don't start to experience my true nature consistently, right? That's a good question, and a lot of people ask that question, right? And the answer to that question is because if you look and you're brutally honest, you still have some invested energy in the old you. There's still energy invested in the old you in terms of operating that way. You have to look. If you look, you'll see that it's got to be true. It's got to be true. That you're still hoping that things are going to turn out the way you want. You're still hoping that you can get to a place of security, given that you have some money or you have some possessions, or you're still hoping that you're going to start to experience this consistent experience of happiness, satisfaction, peace of mind, and well-being. But one of my teachers from the past wrote a book, and he titled the book Abandon Hope. Hope is a ridiculous concept, really. I mean, if you really examine it, hope is a ridiculous concept. What is it? I'm hoping that things work out. What the hell is that? I'm hoping that things work. It's as if things could work out for you. You just haven't gotten it right yet. You see what I'm saying? But I can get it right. This is what I'm talking about. It hasn't worked out yet, but it can work out. I can get it right, right? If you're still invested in that, that's what's in your way of experiencing the truth. It's as simple as that. And it's not easy to come out of being invested in that because the whole world's doing that. You know what I mean? When you're around other people and you're talking to people, right? Everybody's playing the same game, right? Everybody's playing the same game, trying to have people think well of them, trying to make a good appearance, you know, be respected, right? Have people know you, you know, all this type of thing. And if people don't respect you or people look at you the wrong way, you immediately go into conflict with them because they're affecting your self-image. You don't want anybody to hurt that self-image. That's, you know, that's you, right? It's really a big relief when you discover that that's not real. That you have nothing to prove to anybody, you know. You don't give a damn what other people think about you. You have nothing to prove to anybody. And you're here to authentically and sincerely live a good life, you know, and be available to people, making a contribution, making a difference wherever you can make it. And that's the life that works. That's a life that works. And that life will only come from an authentic experience of the truth of yourself. It won't come from just trying hard. That won't come from just trying hard. I would think by now you would have understood that. You know, if you're as old as I am, if you've been around for a while, all you have to do is look back and see what the evidence says.